Hello, and welcome to the Get Lean and Eat Clean podcast. My name is Gryn. I'm a certified health coach, trainer, and author. And this podcast is for middle-aged men and women looking to optimize their health and get their bodies back to what it once was 10 to 15 years ago. I will give you simple, actionable items to get long-term sustainable results. Thanks for listening and enjoy the show. All right, welcome to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. My name is Gryn, and I hope you had a great weekend. Happy Tuesday if you're listening to this on Tuesday, and I hope you had a great weekend. Beautiful Father's Day of weather here. So happy Father's Day to all those fathers out there. And I actually spent the day up with my wife's family up in Michigan, Michiana, about an hour 45 from where we're at. And yeah, it's just an easy drive and beautiful weather with right along the lake. So highly recommend that. Felt like I was like on the ocean, but wasn't. So did some mini cold plunging. Actually, I'd say the water temperature was probably around 60, 65, and it felt great. So highly recommend that. And also recommend listening to my last podcast with interview with Eric Abramowitz. And we touched on all about the supplement industry and, mastering sleep and tips around, morning routines. So he was great. He was a bit outspoken, and I loved a lot of the tips he gave. We even talked about, how to work a routine around your kids, because he just had I think he had a baby boy. So anyways, definitely listen to that. Hopefully you're enjoying my micro podcasts. I enjoy sending them out to you. So today we're going to touch on a topic I think that comes up a lot with all my guests, most of my guests, and that's hunger. And if you just think about it conceptually, I mean, just think if we can control hunger, we can really get a grasp around, eating right and, not being controlled by the clock. Because I think hunger is one of these things that I know it comes and goes. It really does. It comes in waves. And a lot of it's based on almost like a conditioned response on what time it is during the day. I'm sure you notice that if you're used to eating at noon, when noon's coming around, you start feeling those hunger cues. And, let's say 6 p.m. dinner time, same type of thing. If you're having hunger all throughout the day, you might want to dig a little bit deeper. We're not going to touch on all that on this micro podcast, but hunger is one of those things where you just have to eventually embrace it. And I think getting into fasting is one of those things that can really help you wrap your arms around it. Because if not, the thing with fasting, you can totally get in control of I'm not saying you won't be hungry. I mean, I'm hungry. I have times where I go excuse me. I have times when I get hungry. We all get hungry, right? It happens. It is a bit of a conditioned response. Is it a psychological thing, or are you really physically hungry? And studies out there are showing it's really just a psychological thing based on the clock. So, if your current habit of eating 4 or 5 times a day continues to pop up, perhaps you should start implementing some type of fasting routine. It's just what it's going to do. It's going to put a little structure in your day. And I think that's so important to have a little bit of structure and control, because then it can just become a free for all. And that's when, you're just sort of eating just out of boredom, or eating just based off of just a minor hunger cue. I think back in the day, I used to, if I had any inkling of hunger, and you've heard me say this on my podcast, I'm looking for that, whatever. I used to be Kind bars was a big snack of mine. And, snacking is one of those things that I always say, before you even do fasting, let's wrap our arms around controlling snacking. I mean, we all enjoy it to some degree. So I'm not saying you have to completely eliminate snacking. Even myself, I'll have my nice satiating meal at, let's say, 5:30, 6 o'clock, because I enjoy eating early for a lot of benefits. But I'll have a little something afterwards, but I give myself some time. It's maybe 30 minutes of controlled snacking, if you want to call it that. Nothing too processed. So there's nothing wrong with that, having a little something extra here and there. That's fine. But when you find that it's controlling your everyday life, then, you really want to wrap your arms around, why am I snacking? Am I just snacking out of boredom? A lot of people, it's these cues, right? When we go to movies or we're watching TV or if we're at the ball game, or if we're in the car rushing on our way to work, we're eating there. I think a good rule of thumb is you're only going to eat when you're sitting at a table. And I think that can really help solve a lot of issues around eating, on the run. And, with fasting, by randomly skipping meals, you can sort of, you can eventually break this habit of being controlled by the clock. And I think this is important. So, we talk about skipping that first meal of the day. I would say that this is a good start. Now, it doesn't have to be the skipping your first meal. If you really love that first meal of the day and say it's at 8 a.m., that's fine. But maybe it's skipping that second meal of the day and just having breakfast and dinner. There's not a perfect formula for that. But I do think it's important to sort of mix up your feeding times. And if you're one that's been snacking all the time, maybe a goal is just eliminate snacking and just make sure you have 3 satiating meals. Obviously satiating meals, these are things that are, I would say, focus on whole foods, right? Eliminate barcodes and boxes. And, whether that's a higher carb meal, that's up to you. I've had so many guests talk about so many different ways to eat, and I'm not going to really put myself in one camp. I personally enjoy eating a higher fat, higher protein meals. And if I do have carbs, I probably, for the most part, I'll have them towards the end of the day. And that's just how I like to feel. For me, I like to feel a little bit lighter. And I think sometimes when if I do have a carb heavy meal, obviously not processed carbs, I like to have it towards the end of the day. This could be potato, baked potato, or this could be even some fruit. There's nothing wrong with that. But if I do have it, I do have it towards the end of my day. But that's something differently to talk about. That's another podcast entirely. What I think you want to get in the habit of doing is eating only at the table and doing some type of fasting. And when I say some type of fasting, like I said, that could be having a meal at 8, fasting till noon, having a meal at noon, fasting till 5 o'clock, and having that meal. And then really wrapping your arms around closing that kitchen at a certain time. I really do. And I've said this before, I think just the habit of saying, okay, I'm done eating. My eating window closes at 7 p.m. And that's it. It's just one of those, I think, like biohacks. If you want to call that a biohack, it's probably not even a biohack, but it's just one of those like tips that can just create such a positive cascading of events after that, right? It eliminates late night snacking. It's going to help you with sleep. If you talk to a lot of sleep experts, they say give yourself about 3 hours from that last meal to bedtime. So, I mean, for me, I typically go to bed around 10:30. So if I'm done at the latest 7 p.m., that's right in that window. So, hunger is something that, for one thing, you'll never totally control, never totally wrap your arms around, right? We all have hunger cues and hunger pains. But I think sometimes when you have this hunger, you have to ask yourself, why am I getting hungry? Am I getting hungry just because it's a conditioned response? Am I really, truly hungry? Sometimes you've got to sort of sit in that hunger for a bit. And that's why I sort of enjoy fasting. And it's not a starvation tool, right? This is, trust me, we are far from being starved here in the Western world. Okay. There's people starved in other areas and who don't know where their next meal is coming from. And that I totally get. But for us, we have a Starbucks on every corner for the most part. We're very blessed to have food available in whenever we want. So I hate when people say, oh, I'm just so starving. No, actually, no, you're not really starving. This is not starvation. So, going cold turkey and just jumping into fasting could be an option. For a lot of people, especially my clients, we like to ease them into that. And I talk about that in the journal. But I'll give you a few tips just to sort of break those hunger cues that might be coming up throughout the day. And one of them is staying busy. And I just think this is probably the biggest one, because if you could take your mind away from food, get yourself out of the kitchen. This could be going for a walk. This could be making sure that you're staying busy with work or whatever it is, and family. So that's first and foremost. And one thing I like to do is drink some type of sparkling mineral water. For one, you're getting minerals, electrolytes, right? Sodium, potassium, and which you're not going to get from just normal plain water. And you're also, especially with sparkling water, I find this is a filling, helps fill me up and helps sort of takes me out of that like thinking about food and hunger thing. And again, a lot of this is in your mind. So you got to trick the mind a little bit. You got to play the game as well. Obviously, eating a satiating meal, higher protein, maybe a bit higher on the fat side, might help as well. A lot of my friends in the keto space obviously talk about this, and eating satiating meals, high protein, high fat, or moderate fat, I think can really help stave off these hunger pains that you might be getting throughout the day. If you're having processed foods, this is probably a big reason why you're getting hungry about an hour later. And I always say, like, I'm not a big sushi eater, but I always just find with sushi that it never fills me up. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, and you feel like you can probably eat like a ton of it. And part of that could be the rice, the starchiness of that. Obviously with sushi, you're getting some quality protein in there, but either way, you want to make sure you eat satiating meals. So that's another one. Black coffee is a big one. I've been getting big into unsweetened teas. Something about a warm beverage. I'm not a big warm beverage person. I'll have hot tea, and that'll help sort of get you through those hunger pains. So, if you have your last meal and then it's 7-8 o'clock and you're just still feeling it a little bit, most likely it's just a psychological thing, and maybe having a little bit of a warm tea at night is the way to go. And I've been doing that a lot. And then just staying out of the kitchen, obviously, not leaving things that are to tempt you to eat. It's funny, you come to people's houses and they have all these things laying around outside on the countertop. Who knows? I mean, the biggest one I see not a lot, but with some people is like peanut M&Ms just sitting there. I mean, talk about just asking for trouble, right? Excuse me. So keep those things far away. Maybe make them tough to get to. Maybe make them those things that you really don't want to eat. Put them high up, so you got to get a step ladder, because then it's a bit of a pain in the ass, and then you don't really want to go through the process of getting it. So that could be a good little tip if you are keeping some cheat items in your house. Just keep them high up so it's like a pain in the butt to get them. So the bottom line when it comes to hunger and snacking is a lot of it's just a conditioned response. And my goal a lot of times with the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast is to help sort of change your relationship with food, so it won't necessarily run your life. And hopefully a lot of these podcasts and these interviews will help that. If you have any questions regarding this, you can give me a call, Brian. Give me a call. You could start with shooting me an email, brian@briangryn.com, and I will definitely get back to you. But so anyways, let's try some of those tips. Try some of those tips to breaking hunger, and eliminate snacking, and then maybe start implementing a little bit of fasting from time to time. So hope this helps. Thanks so much for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week and your summer, and we'll talk to you on Friday. Thanks again. Thanks for listening to the Get Lean, Eat Clean podcast. I understand there are millions of other podcasts out there, and you've chosen to listen to mine, and I appreciate that. Check out the show notes at briangryn.com for everything that was mentioned in this episode. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast and share it with a friend or family member that's looking to get their body back to what it once was. Thanks again, and have a great day.